Saturnastra, chapter 19. The Masquerade. As he walked through the crowd shaking his head up and down, and from time to time he said above his breath phrases from a song that he was listening to, and he would bump into a couple every so often. And a dancing knight said to him, "Watch it, lad." And a nice dance partner placed her hand on the knight's chest and shook her head, and he bowed to her and said, "As you wish, milady." The girl was Melina, and she had harmonized among the nymphs, kind, and she was already full-grown, and the nymphs had a faster maturity rate, and they were full-grown women after 5 years, and she was wearing a ballerina costume, and it had the pattern of yellow, green, and red triangle, and the tips of the white triangles featured tiny pearl ornaments, and her hair was curled up, and her frame was fragile and petite, and she took out his hand, and he smiled, and he mimicked her smile, and she giggled. And she said to him, "What a lovely party! Pity that it stinks." And she found after covering her nose, and he simply giggled before saying, "Pari peep peep peep." And Melina smiled again, laughing, and she suddenly pouted before saying, "Don't look at he, but my man is getting a little jealous." And he gave Melina a sideways look before hugging her waist, and his head rested gingerly on her chest, and she petted his black hair before and she petted his red hair before saying, "Oh, you're so silly." And as Melina had said, a strange knight was making his way towards them, and the knight was suddenly intercepted by the ape man with a staff, and he took the knight's hand and he said, "Dance with me, honey." And the knight brushed him aside without saying another word, and he kept on walking. And the ape struck the knight lightly with the tip of the staff, and the knight did not notice the tap, and he and Melina giggled when they saw this little scene. The night grew closer, as did he and Melina, and they whispered 28, 27, 23, and when the countdown was 10, the night was finding the armor to be overwhelmingly heavy, and the night collapsed on the ground. And the ape man sat on top of the night, and he said, "You are not fooling anyone, sister." And the voice of the night betrayed her identity, and she grabbed hold of the monkey tails and said, "Damn you." But now her hand fell flat against the floor, and the other dancers started stepping over her black armor, and some tripped over it while cursing at the pair, and the couple thought that the knight was passed out drunk. And the ape man made his way towards Ahi and Melina waved at him, and Ahi did the same in imitation of Melina. And the creature smiled, he gave the thumbs up, and based on his mannerisms, he realized that he was Ahi's twin, or so they claimed. And he changed quite a lot since we last observed him, and even his energy signature was different, and it was all the result of his developing magical powers, while he went on a different direction. And then we took notice of his tail. He wasn't an ape, but a monkey man. And we looked at wicked Sophie, who said to us, and the lad now goes by the name of Monkey King, a simple name really, considering that he's now king of the apes in Lusitania. And Monkey King came to stand with Ahi and Melina, and Ahi stretched his hand, and Monkey King did the same, and Melina struck both playfully on the head and said, "Oh, stop it, you two. At least try to act normal." And Monkey King put his arm around Melina's waist, and he said, "You want to talk, sister, and let's get out of this phrase. We're disturbing the other dancer." And Monkey King led Melina out of the dancing hall, and he walked ahead of them, and he knew that his brother would find a proper place to stop, and suddenly Melina stopped and said, "Oh, my husband." She's still in the dance hall, and as she shook his shoulder and said, "She'll be fine, she's fine," said Monkey King, looking at her. And as she shook his shoulder and said, "We don't know that." And Melina did not really care about her so-called husband. However, the Black Knight was Melina's ride home, and she was a lazy sort of lady with a fondness for playing games. And she could have easily convinced Monkey King to undo the spell. However, she was having way too much fun watching him squirm. And he led his brother and sister to his dungeon, and Melina yawned when she saw the dungeon, and she said half-heartedly, "Is this where you live? How awful." And he shrugged his shoulders in response, and Monkey King opened the door for Melina, and he sat down on his golden pile. And his eyes narrowed when he noticed that the pile had greatly decreased in size overnight, and Monkey King climbed on top of the Iron Man and sat like a thinker, and he reclined against the wall and pretended to look pensive with his arms crossed and his leg against the wall. And Melina said to Ahi, "So Ahi, how have you liked your little vacation?" And he nodded in response, and then asked Monkey King, "So where have you been?" "He's been here, there, and everywhere," said Monkey. He pointed to random spots in the room, and Melina had asked Monkey King about Ahis, and he had purposely understood everything about him. And Melina rested her head and said, "It's not fair, and why does he get to have all the fun?" "How's your goodwill mission going?" asked Monkey King. "What can I say? The nobles are corrupt, the knights fanatical, the communists unruly, the former slaves unruly, everyone's just unruly, and I just want to have a little bit of fun," she said, sighing. And the conversation was interrupted by a sad clown returning a handful of gold to Ahi, and he kneeled and he begged, "Please make the bad things go away, I don't know, I'm sorry." And then he spit it on his hand in imitation of someone, and then he placed his spitted finger in the eyes of the clown, and his eyes turned cyan for a second, and then he healed the clown of his bad visions. And when the man opened his eyes, the bad visions were gone, and he shook his head when he saw the teeth depart. And Melina and Monkey King laughed heartily at the sad clown, and they knew that he, instead of helping the man, had actually made things worse. Or so they fancied. He left the dungeon to return to the Masquerade, and he apparently found Melina and Monkey King's serious talk rather dull. And he went from the ballroom to the courtyard, and there he saw a drunken Mulder on top of the roof of the castle guard, and he was saying to the others below, "Guys, I'm going to do this once, and you guys, are you looking? Wait for it. Duke, look, you're going to miss it. Are you looking?" "Yes, go for it," said the Duke, urging him on to do his stupid drunken act. A cold rain started falling over the crowd, and they did not seem to mind. And he went to stand beneath the covered walkway within it, which kept him dry, and he was still able to see Mulder's drunk trick. And Mulder took a deep breath, and he spilled out a blue flame into the sky, and halfway he started laughing, burning his own mouth in a ghastly fashion. And the pain made him lose his balance, and he fell from the tower, laughing like a maniac. And the cheering crowd went silent when they saw his head splatter all over the floor. And Mulder played dead for a few minutes, and Brunhilde stepped over her father's carcass and went on her way. And when she left, he said to the crowd, "Fool you, ha 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 ha." And Brunhilde snorted and acted as if she did not know her drunken father. She was rather ashamed of him at the moment. It wasn't Mulder's fault. A barrel of ahi seki egg was enough to affect even a dragon. And Mulder could always handle his drinking, since his dragon form required truckloads of alcohol to even make him a little woozy. He shook his head, smiling, and then he returned to the ballroom, and after wandering aimlessly, a young man sitting among the nobles caught his attention. And he sniffed the air, and he gave a sideways look before rubbing his chin thoughtfully. And the young man was a head taller than he, and he was about 16 years of age, and the frame delineated by the robe was thin and fragile, and two elegant gentle hands held an untouched cup of blood wine, and the man wore a simple black mansion robe, and it was ornamented enough to pass for a costume. And he had black flowery patterns, however he too wore the usual party mask. He went to stand before him, his mouth and the mage's eyes narrowed when he saw the kid, and he waved his hand as if trying to shoo away a dog, and he said, "Shoo, go away." And he smiled when he heard this, and the mage placed his elbow on the table and rested his head on his hand. And he was about to throw his glass of blood wine at his face when a strong hand held his wrist, and the lad standing before them was 14 years of age, and he was the same size as he, and he wore elegant robes, the top white, and the sleeves were cuffed at the elbow to the wrist. And his hood hung low, casting his face in shadow, and the shoulder had a pair of the hood and the back were covered in white feathers, and in the chest he had an ornamental red heart, and he had small angel wings. The angel figure tightened his grip, and the mage dropped his glass, and feeling himself attacked, the mage gathered the words of magic, and the angel released the mage's hand. And the mage rubbed his hand in a vain attempt to get rid of the stinging sensation. And the angel said in a familiar, low, melancholy voice, "Forgive me, I sometimes forget my own strength." And something about the way the man spoke deeply unnerved the mage, and the mage stood up in anticipation for a fight, and the angel placed his hand over his shoulder and said, "Still a noble bride till the end, and that part of you will not win you any friends." And he too grinned and laughed at the silly mage, who was growing angry. And again the mage tried to gather magic, and his concentration was distracted by his swift hand which took his mask. And the mage covered his face with his hand and tried to reach for the mask, and he ran away with the mask, followed by the angel. And at a certain point the mage noticed that he gave the mask to the angel, while the pair ran in opposite direction, and the mage ran after the angel while covering his face, and the crowd found this little game of tag hilarious. The mage stoically ignored them, and he chased the angel in the hallways of the castle, and at a certain point he lost the angel from sight. And we too lost track of the angel, and the maid saw a convenient roll of feathers as he went along, and the feathers led him to the kitchen. And when he opened the kitchen portal, he stepped on something he thought was wine, and the mage opened his eyes wide, and he felt his vision grow blurry for a second, and he looked at the workers in the kitchen, and everything looked the way it should be. Still, he could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. And it was a good thing that we stuck with the mages, otherwise we would have failed to enter Marduk's aria, and Marduk was the angel in disguise. And he has special blood that was ideal for making the arias. And arias were created when you vocalize your aura, and it combines both sound and presence, and it uses both to create your own temporal space with rules designed to help you win any battle. And the abilities of the aria depend much on both the creativity and power of the caster. And to get one out, you needed to kill the master, and even a weakling with a strong aria powers could be a god in his own temporal domain. The man felt something was wrong, and he got a bit paranoid, and he passed through the kitchen and into the hallway lighted by candles, and while he walked, he kept looking over his shadow. And he passed his hand over the wall, and he closed his eyes, and the particular mage had great memory. Yes, everything was as he remembered, and yet Marduk emerged from the shadows of the hallway, and he followed behind him, munching on a magic eye of the mask. And Marduk threw the mask at the mage and said, "You need not be so hostile. My little brother only wanted to eat your eyeball." And the mage caught the mask, and he put it back on, and finding the mage asked, taking a step back, "What do you want from me? Where am I?" Marduk placed his hand on his face, and he said, "My coily, whatever do you mean?" The blood one had done much to cloud the mage's judgment, and being of a noble descent had given him a taste for wine, and 5 glasses was enough to make him rather foolish. And the mage lifted his hand, and he casted a raw fire spell, and raw spells were pure, unrefined magic. And had he done his spelling in the real world, he would have burned to a crisp all of the innocent bystander, and his body melted like hot candle wax, an imitation of someone. And he stood before Marduk and held his hands up, and the magic died before it reached him, and the mage's vision grew a bit blurry after the fire. And focusing his gaze, he said, "Yes, I see now you are a demon, yes, and that explains this domain." And the mage placed his hand on the wall and burned right through the wall of the area, and the mage went from one area to another, and this led to Marduk's second one, and this one was nothing but empty white space. And it was another infinite all around, and in this area Marduk controlled the distance between himself and his opponent, and it was a tricky one to break out of. And the moment he got inside, the mage started free falling right where he stood. And the mage yawned and said, "This is new. I never met a demon with 2 realms, and what a pain. I suppose there's only one thing left to do." And the mage held his hands in a universal prayer voice, and then he whispered Artsy, and then he was gone. And he whistled when the mage laughed, and Marduk started laughing, and his eyes changed to cyan color and then blood again. And the tiny angel wings in his head covered his eyes. "I know where they are looking upon you, father." And he scratched his head and then was rather confused. And suddenly we noticed Marduk's personal servant Lucy, and we asked her what is going on inside the head of it, and Lucy said nothing, and Marduk was the firstborn and a prototype for the other children. And prototypes were always glitchy and unreliable. "And you know I can hear you," said Marduk proudly, "and go back to playing with a heat. Unlike you, I have some actual real work to do, and you are in the way." And Marduk got out of his aria, followed by a heat, and the mage was waiting for him to get out, and he was resting against the wall with his hands folded, and he seemed a bit pensive, though finally sober. And the mage apparently could use both offensive and healing magic as well, and he had removed all impurities from his body in order to regain clarity. And the mage said to Marduk, "Took you long enough, and you're not very good at this, are you?" "Don't flatter yourself," said the angel, lowering his hood, and the angel's face was cold and disdainful, and there was a slight smirk painted on his lip, and this contrasted with his melancholy lavender-colored eyes, and he had the face of a pretty maiden. He finished eating the eye of the mask, and he gestured to Marduk, and then Marduk said, "I agree," pretending to understand what his gesture meant. And he pointed to the mage before saying, "How rude of you throwing a glass of wine on my little brother, and you really got to work on your people skills. And one day you're going to anger someone stronger than you." "I take it you think you're strong," asked the mage sarcastically, and he added, "Not that it matters. In the end, I always win." "You should still apologize to the child," insisted Marduk. The mage gave a sigh of frustration and said dispassionately, "If it means that much to you, I ask the young child forgiveness." "Do you forgive him?" he asked Marduk, turning to his brother, and he had his ear to the wall and his eyes closed. And the mage yawned, and Castor said to the mage, "It is past your bedtime, little mage." "Perhaps," said the mage, yawning. "And before I leave, I want to ask you something. Depending on what you say, I may kill you both." You're welcome to try, said Madu, smiling sadly, and he looked serious for a moment, and he took Madu's robe and said, I'm hungry. And ignoring him, Madu waited for the mage to ask his question, and the mage was glad to be wearing a mask, and he placed his hands on his back, and he started drawing a small circle on his left foot, and he seemed a bit embarrassed to ask his question. So tell me, what do you think? Isn't my face the most beautiful one you ever saw? Men and women alike have been smitten. And tell me, do you think I'm pretty? Said the mage, turning around. Any other person would have laughed their heads off after hearing such a stupid question, and indeed some of our brethren started snickering, trying hard to hold back our mirth. And as he turned around so that Madu would not see him laughing, and Madu was the only person serious in this situation, and the gossiping maid who was listening to the conversation started laughing. How don't flatter yourself, fool, said Madu, folding his arm. And he giggled, not understanding the question, and Castor and Castor told Ahi to say, you are the ugliest person that has, or whoever exists. Just looking at you nauseates me, and do the world a favor, and don't take off your mask. And when he said this, he walked away, and the mage was at a loss in thought for a moment, and Marduk shook his head smiling, and he too walked away, but in the opposite direction. And the mage was left once alone again, and Johnny he became see-through for a second before finally disappearing. And we stayed alone in the darkness for a while, and we could not make heads or tails of what had just occurred. Alright, so that's the end of that chapter. Bye bye and God bless.